Ladies and gentlemen, as per usual, when we have a alpha or beta for a new Call of Duty game, what I like to do is make a few different videos discussing my overall opinions on it. And sometimes throughout the betas and alphas they change, sometimes I was right about things, sometimes I was wrong about things, and in this video I am going to cover essentially all of those, because over the past weekend we had the kind of closed beta on PlayStation. It was on PS4 and PS5, so if you're on PC or Xbox you weren't able to play, and I think that lends to some issues in and of itself, which of course we will talk about. But as far as this video goes, there's essentially 4 different things that I noticed throughout this weekend of the beta that I really wanted to focus on, and one of them I was very wrong about in my initial beta opinion. So if you guys didn't know, I got to play the beta a little bit early, and with that we were playing against other streamers, YouTubers, press, things along those lines, and from that my opinions have greatly changed over the last weekend. Now there's a couple of reasons for this that we'll go over, but essentially the main things that I wanted to cover is the game modes and maps in and of itself, the visibility, the spawns, and my overall experience over the weekend, because that last one I think is really important, and that last one is what I've seen a lot of people talking about. Is the game fun to play? Does it get boring? Things along those lines, and that's pretty much the most important part of this video. I'm going to save it to the end because I think it's important for you to hear my other opinions before we dive into that. So without further ado, these are my honest thoughts. This is what's going through my head after the first weekend of the beta. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I played on PS5, which means I couldn't use a SCUF controller, which is what I normally use. I normally play on PC, and with this in the beta, there was no FOV slider, which I didn't really like. But next weekend, once we're on PC, of course, you're going to have that FOV slider, a lot of other graphical options, and that will improve the game in and of itself. Now, one thing I've been hearing a lot about is visibility, and visibility is going to improve with an FOV slider. However, there's some really weird things, like when you shoot your guns, all this smoke comes out, it actually distorts your screen. I saw Exclusive Ace do an individual video on this, and it was very well done, so you can check that out if you want a little more detail on that. But as far as this goes, it's annoying, it needs to be fixed. Visibility is a very big thing in Call of Duty, and it needs to get better, essentially, is the easiest way to look at. Now, the other thing that I've seen a lot of people complain about with the beta is the spawns. You have to understand that in every single Call of Duty beta we have ever had, the spawns are always total garbage, so there's no difference here. That is going to get better. I did notice that the spawns were very different in different game modes, and this is where we kind of get into my next piece that I didn't really like over the past weekend. So essentially, we had 3 different maps: Gavutu, Red Star, and then Hotel Royale, and as far as all of these go, they are decent maps, but there is problems with all of them, and specifically problems with the combat pacing. Now, if you don't already know, combat pacing is essentially a thing where in tactical you play 6v6, in assault there's a little bit more players, and then in blitz it's a full-on free-for-all, like ground war from previous Call of Duty games, completely chaotic, and that's essentially what I wanted to play most of the weekend. However, there wasn't an option just to choose blitz, and then later they added it and you could only play blitz team deathmatch. I think that was a very big mistake, because what I personally wanted to play was Blitz Domination and Blitz Patrol. Patrol was the new game mode, and a game mode that I really enjoy. However, I didn't really get to play those game modes that I really enjoy on Blitz because they weren't in the actual playlist and you couldn't filter it. Now, as I mentioned in my previous video talking about the maps, it is very clear that certain maps are designed for a certain type of combat pacing. For example, Red Star is a very large map for 6v6, and predominantly that was the map I was getting on 6v6. So the game played incredibly slow, and in a beta like this, I want to play the game modes that I want and kind of get a better idea of what I'm going to be getting into in the full launch of the game. So because of that, I almost got a little bit frustrated with the matchmaking. Now, the matchmaking in and of itself, I know this is something a lot of people will want me to talk about. Skill-based matchmaking, it's definitely there. I noticed myself playing the same players over and over again, even when I searched for a new match. You have to keep in mind that this was a closed beta weekend, so there was less people playing it, less variety of people for you to play, so we don't know the extent of the skill-based matchmaking, but as far as what I've experienced, a lot of repeat players, and that tends to make me think that skill-based matchmaking is more of a thing, which in turn, as we're going to talk about at the end of the video, makes the game a little bit more boring, at least in my books. Now, the maps play directly into the next thing that I want to talk about, and that is game design. Now, as far as Call of Duty goes, it generally follows a very similar formula with a few tweaks here and there. For example, in Black Ops Cold War, the way that the score streaks were designed is so that throughout a game, you earn your score streaks based off of the amount of kill streaks you've gone on, and you can earn them even after dying. In this game, they are just kill streaks. If you get a 10 kill streak, you get dogs. This is a format that I personally prefer, but it has really, really big flaws. And those major flaws are, number one, if you get assists, they count as eliminations, but they don't count towards your kill streaks. If you play the objective, it doesn't really matter. You don't get more kill streaks. Now, for years now, I've said this, but the thing that makes Call of Duty exciting, at least in my books, is getting those kill streaks and all of a sudden becoming very, very powerful within the game because you have done well. With the way that it is set up in this game, there is no incentive to move, there is no incentive to play the objective. If you play kill confirm, why pick up the dog tags? All that really matters is the kills that you get. That is why I've said for years that I don't like kill streaks, I don't like score streaks, but what I prefer is what Modern Warfare 3 had of point streaks. It essentially works like kill streaks, but when you play objectives and do certain things, you get more points towards those point streaks, and it actually incentivizes people to move and play the objective. This ties directly into how the maps are designed within Call of Duty Vanguard, because to be honest, there's a lot of places people can just sit, camp, and wait for players to come to them, and with the kill streak design, it incentivizes that. Now, there are other things within the game that I do find frustrating. First off, if you haven't played it a lot, you may not have run into this because it's something I believe you unlock at level 27, which was later in the beta, but it's body armor. Body armor is a field upgrade that essentially gives you 2-ish more bullets of health. This also, coupled with the fact that you earn it quickly, means you can get this like 10 to 12 times a game and essentially constantly have more health than everyone else in the game. Body armor has been in multiplayer before. Thinking back, Black Ops 4 had it, and everyone hated it. I don't know why they refuse to acknowledge that and just say, hey, we probably shouldn't have this in our game. Now, odds are this is here to stay, so the way to fix this would make the amount of time it takes to get it long instead of short, and on top of that, make it so it only gives 1 extra bullet of health, not 2 in a lot of situations. That would be a big help, but in all, I would just prefer if they kind of got rid of that altogether. Speaking of which, the other really poor game design, at least in my decision, is the minimap. I think a lot of people will disagree with me about this, but personally, I like the traditional Call of Duty format where if you shoot an unsilenced weapon, or a weapon in this game, for example, it doesn't have subsonic ammunition, you show up on that minimap. It gives other players more information, makes it easier for them to move around the map, whereas in this game, they have it so that you have to use the second perk called Radar that then allows the people who shoot weapons to show up on the minimap. I don't like this because it forces you to use that as your second perk on pretty much every single class, and I think that's a very, very poor decision. Number one, if you're not using it, it slows down the game, and number two, it makes a staple perk that you basically have to use to play competitively. I don't like that. I think it's a poor design decision. Now, those are my thoughts on that. I think those things should change, but this leads me into my final point and probably the most important point of the video: how the game plays, is it fun, and where do I see this moving forward? Now, there's 3 parts that I want to tie into this, the first of which is the time to kill. So I found myself a lot of the time while I was playing the game a little bit frustrated. One, because I didn't have my extended field of view, which I'm used to, which meant that I was dying to my sides a lot more than I'm used to, and even because of the spawns, dying from behind. That, I get, it's going to change, I'm fine with that. However, one thing that I did run into is the time to kill. The time to kill is pretty quick within this game, and because of that, I found myself kind of hopping into a room, having 2, maybe 3 people in there, very easily being able to kill the first one, but having a tough time killing the second one because the enemy killed me so fast. Now, does this mean that I think it should have a longer time to kill? No, not necessarily. And on top of this, I actually had a pretty poor connection for most of the beta. I kept coming up with this thing on the screen that said packet burst. I would lag a lot, and that would make those gunfights with a lot of people even more difficult. So that's something that will improve at the launch of the game, and probably even going into into the next weekend of the beta. However, there was one thing that I found frustrating that I think does need to be fixed, and that is because in this game, there's a lot of weapons with a lot of different attachments. Once the game fully comes out, there's going to be like 70 attachments on each of the weapons. And I found myself getting into a lot of gunfights where I would shoot first, even hit more bullets than the enemy player. However, they would kill me faster. And then I'd watch the kill cam and I wouldn't be able to tell what attachments that they had on their weapon. Because of this, I couldn't learn from the kill cam and figure out, okay, they're probably using this type of ammunition, that's why they killed me quicker, and I should probably change my class setup because of that. I think simply adding the what attachments people are using on their weapons is a very quick way to people to learn what's better and why they may be dying faster to the same weapon that they are using. Speaking of which, the weapon balance wasn't really great within this weekend. I found the STG, the Volk, and the MP40 were very, very powerful and hard to compete with the other weapons in the game. Now, this is something that worries me because if the weapons are unbalanced, there's also a million different attachments for different weapons, so they also have to balance all of those, which is going to be very, very difficult for launch, but if the developers are up to it, it can make the game very, very good. Now, one thing that I will say, and something that I had a problem with in Black Ops Cold War, is in Black Ops Cold War, weapons simply took too long to level up. Within this game, getting to level 30, which was the max within the beta, I didn't find too difficult. However, if there are 70 or 60 different attachments, it's going to essentially double the time it takes to level up these weapons, and I have a feeling that that might take a little bit too long, because you have to remember, most of the people who play Call of Duty are casual players, hop on for 1, 2, maybe even 3 hours a night, and if they can't level up their weapons in that amount of time, I see that deterring a lot of players from staying with this game. That's my opinion, and you may disagree with that, and if you do, let me know what you think down in the comments. Now, this ties into the next thing, and I actually saw Prestigious Key make a video on this, simply saying that he wasn't really having as much fun as he wanted playing the beta. Now, personally for me, where a lot of my fun comes with Call of Duty is the grind. Leveling up your characters, which is going to be in this game, leveling up your weapons, leveling up you as a person with the overall XP, and with a beta, it doesn't carry over into the final version of the game. So that sort of fun that I'm talking about is kind of removed in the beta setting, so of course that's going to make the game a lot more boring. Now, the other thing is we can play 3 maps this weekend. When the game actually comes out, there is 16 different maps for 6v6 and all the way up into Blitz. That's going to make the game more fun as well. Definitely looking forward to that. Do I find the game boring? Yes, but for 2 reasons. One, I think the game design, as we talked about before, lends to a little bit too campy of a playstyle. There's no incentive to play the objectives, there's no incentive for people to move, and with the map design, it makes it so that there's a lot of places where people can camp. In conjunction with skill-based matchmaking, it actually once again incentivizes players with similar skill levels to camp because it's easier to do well, get kill streaks, and in turn do better during that. Now, of course, there's those god tier players who can fight through that skill-based matchmaking and still do well. However, it's a lot more frustrating in a lot of the circumstances. So to fix this, they can incentivize objectives, make it so that there are some smaller maps for 6v6, which Eagle's Nest, which should be in the beta next weekend, is one of those. But all in all, I'm just a little bit worried about those few specific things. And to make the game more fun, make it more playable, make me want to play it more, I think all of the leveling that'll come with a full game, in conjunction with maybe making it so the minimap works like normal, things along those lines will improve the game greatly and improve the play style of players. But I'm not sure about that. You can let me know what you think. These are my opinions. If you have differing opinions, feel free to let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed, hit that like button. And as always, if you like what you see, want to stay up to date on all my videos, subscribe, notifications. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, peace out. We are